The better question probably is, what aren't the taxes? Because
When you buy property in Dubai, you don't really pay tax on it.
no, if you're buying an apartment in Mayfair or you're buying an apartment in central London, there's no mortgage on that, there's no installments on that, there's no nothing. What comes out the back end, Victoria, hurts even more, is inheritance tax. That taxation fee is really hefty. For the standard of living, Dubai is not expensive.
Would you be able to give any advice to those looking to finance their properties?
Don't overextend. People jump onto a bandwagon that sounds like it's doing well and they don't do their due diligence. You hear a great deal and a great development and it's all going really well, it's all wonderful. And suddenly you're cashing in your pension.
You definitely need guidance.
When you go into something really, really quickly and expect a return that's going to set you up for the rest of your life within a year or two, that's dangerous territory for me.
It's all about seeing an opportunity and the right time to invest. Hey everyone, welcome to Keys to Dubai. I have a very special friend here, Ali. Hey Ali, welcome.
Nice to be here. Nice to see you.
It's very good to have you here.
Pleasure to be here.
Would you like to tell the audience about yourself?
I can. So I'm 18 months in Dubai. My second stint in the Middle East. I am an ex-banker. Don't hate me for that. Spent 18 years in banking and then I moved out 18 months ago. And I spent a little bit of time doing some consultancy and some advisory work and just working on a few different projects in the Middle East as we speak. But it's really lovely to be here and thanks for having me.
Thank you, Ali.
You're welcome.
Ali, since we're studying together at the wonderful University Hall doing our MBA, that's how we met. Mm-hmm. And I know you're new here, 18 months. You relocated from UK with your wife. And I would like to ask your opinion. How is Dubai treating you so far?
It's funny, actually, because when you've been here 18 months, I think this is the kind of city that you don't feel new anymore. So you're right. Any other city, 18 months, you would feel incredibly new. And yet 18 months here feels like you've been here forever. And I say that in a good way because everything is just made, it's a city that makes things easy for you. It's a city that makes things easy to come and, whether it's to start a business, whether it's to, get yourself embedded into the system, whether it's your ID or your driving license, all of those things. So, look, it comes with its challenges because that's the challenge of moving to a new country. And I think that would be the same anywhere, leaving your family, leaving your home, leaving all the things that you know. But all in all, we love it. In many ways, what's not to like? The weather is great. The infrastructure is fantastic. I get donuts delivered to my house at 11 o'clock in the evening if I fancy a cheeky Dunkin' Donut at 11:30. Where else do you get that in the world? So it's been really good so far.
So you're staying?
Yes. Doesn't everyone say they're staying?
I know.
Yeah.
That's a quite common thing in Dubai. Yeah. People come and they have this timeline. We'll stay here for 1, 2, 3 years. Doesn't happen. Yeah. I have so many friends who've been here for 20 years. It's just the place kind of sucks you in and doesn't let you go because people don't realize how much it has to offer. I think
I hear that more and more. And I remember I did my first stint in the Middle East in, I think, 2003, 2004. So I was in my 20s when I did that. And I had a very clear vision of, I'm going to do this for 5 years. It's good money, it's tax-free, all of those things. And then I'll move back to London. And you do that then. But I think people coming out now, the more and more I speak to people, especially since we've moved out, now there's more and more people who want to move. And you're right, look, you've been here for such a long period.
Years.
You hear it all the time. And I think people are coming to stay. People don't want to move back to wherever home might be. People refer to this as their home. I refer to this as my home now when I refer to Dubai, which is slightly strange because London's always been my home.
I know.
Yeah.
And you are in the area of downtown.
Yes, I am.
And I love this location. We're very close to it.
Yeah.
And being a finance professional, the IFC is so close by.
Very close, yeah.
How do you find downtown as an area to live?
So downtown's, we love it. I have to say that, like most people, I guess, when you come, you're considering, your biggest consideration is where to stay. And so you kind of almost, you'll pick different places. And a lot of people will say to you, and when you get the right advice from the right people will say, choose somewhere to live there for a few months, work out what it's like, the bonus that we have is that we don't have kids. So for us, that's a huge plus. Sorry, that sounds really bad when I say it's a huge plus. It's a huge plus from an accommodation perspective because we don't have to worry about space or garden or all that kind of stuff. So for us, everything is about convenience and amenities. And downtown is excellent for that. You know, like you say, it's close to DIFC, which is great for both of us for work. The vibe downtown is also very, very nice. You know, you can walk out onto the boulevard. There's coffee shops aplenty, restaurants. You know, the evenings are nice. There's just so much it's just a nice vibe. We just really like the vibe downtown. And actually, we've been there since we moved. Every time the lease has come up for renewal, we've considered moving somewhere else. We've looked at other places and ended up right back in the same apartment again.
I can understand.
Yeah.
I think it's ideal for you. And I'm very happy you brought the point that you have no kids because there's so many couples who need that.
Yeah.
And not only restaurants, there's Dubai Mall, Burj Khalifa, Dubai Opera. So many things are there.
So many things. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not much of a mall person. So Dubai Mall being as close as it is to us is probably not one of my big plus points because, you know, the traffic can get a little bit crazy at certain times trying to get in and out of the mall. I've also spent my fair few occasions getting lost in Dubai Mall car park.
Oh, yeah.
So that just reminds me that I should just walk to Dubai Mall more often because it is walkable. But you're right. Look, everything is so close. But then we have friends who've been here for many, many years. You know, people who moved 12 years, 13 years, 14 years ago. They all have families, they have kids, and they all started kind of in that DIFC, downtown sort of arena. They're now out in Arabian Ranches and Springs and things like that because of schooling and kids and things. And obviously we don't need to consider that. So, but we love it. It's a very, very nice part of Dubai.
Ali, it's actually very interesting what you said. And being here 18 months, you can compare Dubai to UK. So if you compare real estate here and real estate back home, what are the differences? What can you say about that in comparison?
It's a great question. And I have this debate with friends consistently at the moment because you hear very often, and especially from being in the UK. Now, I've been in and out of the region for the last 10, 12 years anyway, so you have a sense of things. But the one thing I hear from people in the UK so often is, but why would you move to Dubai? You know, Dubai is so expensive. And you must have heard this for the entirety of the time that you've been here. And I look at it and I'm like, actually, for the standard of living, Dubai is not expensive. Dubai is actually, you know, if you compare it to London, you compare it to New York, Dubai doesn't come close on a cost base. And I'll tell you why I think that is that when a lot of people move from the UK, they say they're from London, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you're not living in the heart of London. You're living in kind of almost suburban areas, whether it's North London or South London or Birmingham or Manchester or Leeds or wherever it is, right? All lovely places, and they all have cities within themselves. But when they move to Dubai, they want to be in downtown or DIFC, which is the equivalent of living in Mayfair or living in Canary Wharf. And how many people in London can actually do that? So you're not really comparing, British phrase, apples with apples, right? And that then translates into lifestyle. And lifestyle is the same challenge. Is if I'm at home and I'm living in my suburban house in North London, I will go to my local restaurant and I will have a very, very nice, very pleasurable local meal. But since I moved to Dubai, I want to eat in, and I'm not advertising anyone's restaurants, but I want to eat in Zuma every evening, right? And you and I have had this conversation before, right?
The Arts Club, which is in London as well.
And don't get me wrong, if you're going to the Arts Club in London or you're going to the Arts Club in Dubai, it's probably about the same. But I think people come here with this desire, and don't get me wrong, that desire fuels different passions for people. But it's this desire to want to live the Dubai life when you've never really lived the London life or the New York life, and you're not comparing anything. And I think people get caught up in that a little bit. If you strip out all of those airs and graces, I think you can live a very, very good life at a much better cost. I mean, you look at utilities. I think our utilities are 20% of the cost. The apartment that we have here, if we attempted to have the same apartment in Mayfair, then we'd be paying probably about 3 times the price. So
really?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a remarkable difference between, and I think that's the challenge, right? Is that people don't compare an area that is a comparable area to somewhere else. So I still think that real estate in this country, real estate in Dubai, if you're coming from London or you're coming from New York or even Singapore or Tokyo, a place like that, real estate is still very, very good value in this city, if you're comparing it.
That is such an amazing and valid point. And it made me think of something else. When you buy property in Dubai, you don't really pay tax on it.
No.
In UK, when let's say, I want to buy an apartment in Mayfair, what are the taxes when you...
I mean, the better question probably is, what aren't the taxes? Because you pay stamp duty for a start. Then, I mean, aside from all your legal fees and land registry searches and everything else that goes with it, although there's only one taxation fee that hits you when you buy a property in London, that taxation fee is really hefty. So if you're buying an apartment in Mayfair or you're buying an apartment in central London, it's a really, really big chunk of money. And there's no mortgage on that. There's no installments on that. There's no nothing. That's going to the tax man. So you are paying that as part of the cost of your property. What comes out the back end, Victoria, hurts even more, is inheritance tax.
Oh my God.
It's how you manage your property before you pass away, the timelines, all the rest of it. So when you've bought somewhere, you've already paid over the value of the property itself before you've even got the property.
That is interesting. That makes me think of another question, and you, having financial background, will know that. When you buy in Dubai and you take a loan to get a property, the percentage here is quite low. How is it back in UK?
So percentages in the UK in terms of like the loan to value of the mortgage that you can get can be quite high. And I think there are upsides and there are downsides to that, as we've seen from a financial perspective, which I won't bore you with because you will get bored if I go down that route. But you find that you can get up to, in some ways you can get up to 80, 85, 90% of a property's value, which is good because they're trying to get people to buy more property. But the challenge is that's only the value of the property.
Right.
It's not the value of the taxes. It's not the value of anything else. Do you then have to pay for refurbishment of the property? Do you have to then renovate the whole thing?
Of course.
You then have council tax that kicks in on top of that. So annually you're paying a council tax for all the services that come with it. So there's always something. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that London is a bad place, because what you'll see about the London property market is it's still one of the safest places to invest. It's got, if you analyze it over the last 30, 35 years, it's got one of the highest levels of capital appreciation.
Yes.
But that capital appreciation has now completely stabilized. It's, for the last however many years, it's kind of, it's up one day, it's down one day, it's up one day, it's down one day. So what's interesting is that there was always this thing that people used to say to you in the UK is that if you buy a property as a home, then you'll never feel like whether you made money or whether you didn't make money.
Right.
If you suddenly start buying properties as investments, and the UK went through this phase where suddenly it was all about investing. It was all about investing, let's rental yield and money from here, and let's buy this off plan and flip it here. But you never knew where the market was going to go. And you never knew when the rules were going to change.
That is so true.
Yeah.
Because I think in Dubai, it's quite easy if you want to take a loan. You want to buy a property. If you work here, I think it's quite easy. And looking at the percentage that banks offer, I think they're very friendly, if I may say.
Yeah, I mean, I will confess, I don't know. And this is where, weirdly enough, I would always defer to someone like you, who I know has got the expertise, excuse me, who's been in the region for so long, that, again, since us being here 18 months, we get asked the question from people at home. It's not worth investing in the UK. Do we invest in Dubai? Where should we put our money? And my only thing that I say to anybody is speak to the right person and get the right advice. Because honestly, I can come from the UK knowing as much as I do about finance and property and all the rest of it. This is a totally different market. And I think sometimes ego gets the better of people, where people are just like, but I know property, and this is a different landscape. I don't confess to know it. I don't confess to fully understand it yet, having only been here, for 18 months. But you can get lost in the noise, right? You see you're on Instagram and you see people who are queuing for a property sale, trying to get something really, really quickly. And I was like, no, just, you know, I looked at things maybe for a couple of weeks and I thought, oh, this could be quite good. Maybe we should look at it. And this was before I met you. And I'm glad I met you after that, because I just would have been, no, Victoria, what should we do here? Because you can't do it without the right advice.
Of course, 100%. That's what I say.
Yeah.
The key to making the right decision is having the information and the right people.
Yeah.
Because you can go to a real estate agency and it's all great, but you need to know what you want. You need to know the market. You need to know, there's so many things that come to picture, and you really need to have the person who truly will guide you through the process and have
absolutely.
your interest at heart.
And I think, do you know what, that's a really good point, is that it's having the your interest at heart piece. Is that, look, Dubai is, again, 18 months in, but, you know, Dubai has that hustle culture. And it's interesting, in the UK, hustle culture has a slightly negative connotation. Here, it doesn't have a negative connotation. And actually, it shouldn't have a negative connotation, because it is people going out there trying to make their lives better, trying to do better. You see that a lot in real estate, that actually people have got that hunger and that desire, for whatever reason that is, right? They have this hunger and this desire to go out there and to sell properties. It's great for the market. But would I attempt to do it despite knowing what I know? Would I attempt to do it without speaking to someone who knew and understood the market? No way. Not a chance. Because there's no such thing. What is it they always say? That if something comes too easily to you, it's probably too good. If it sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. And I think there's so much of that you hear in Dubai. It's like, buy this property, you'll make 50,000 dirhams in 6 months. Like, no, speak to someone who understands the market, because that way you won't get caught out. Yes,
it's a lot of overwhelming information, a lot of advertising, marketing, and people buy with their eyes, when actually you need to pause and you need to make an informative decision.
Yeah, definitely.
That is so
definitely.
true.
And we still think about it. You know, there's still, every so often, I'm like, 6 months, are we going to buy somewhere? Are we not going to buy somewhere? And it sort of just revolves at the moment. But I know at the moment at which, you know, I do decide to, I know who I'm going to pick up the phone and call. So I'm not worried.
You actually, you stole the question that I was about to ask.
I'm sorry.
No, this is perfect, because I wanted to ask you and Sheila, because you guys are renting, and since you're going to be in Dubai, we're not letting you go. You guys, you think you'll be investing and making it a home and buying?
Yeah, I mean, it's a conversation actually we've been having over the last few weeks in particular. Is what's the balance? There are so many considerations for us that probably other people wouldn't have, and vice versa. For us, it's about wanting a place that we want to live in. The challenge, interestingly, is that because we don't have kids, we don't have that worry of, we need somewhere that's kind of almost a very stable foundation for the kids to grow up for the next 5, 10, 15 years. For us, it's actually sometimes the renting thing for us is quite easy, because if you wake up in 2.5 years and you decide, I feel like I want to move to a new area, or I feel like I've outgrown this apartment, it works really well.
Yeah.
But in the same breath, I'm a businessman. And when you see an opportunity that is potentially passing you by because you're making a decision not to buy, that sometimes can grate a little bit. So it's always, for me and for us, it's always about finding the balance between the flexibility that we like, the freedom that we like, but also the right investment, the right time. Do we want to? Yeah, of course. Look, I think at some point we will. You know, we see Dubai as our future. We'd love to have space for our parents to be out more, you know, both her parents and my parents, and have the balance of them being able to come and feel like it's home.
Yes.
Like having their own rooms and having their own space. Because at the moment, they're still coming to our apartment. They're here for 2-3 days. It's the second room. So it's balancing all those things.
I love that. Ali, you are in finance for many years, and I know you have a lot of experience back in UK, but talking about Dubai market, would you be able to give any advice to those who looking to finance their properties, whether it's commercial or, you know, they're looking for the house?
Yeah, I can try. I'm still actually, interestingly enough, I'm still exploring what the real estate market here looks like, which is why when I talk to you about it and I get the insight from you, it's always, I consider myself quite lucky because I have the balance of you giving me a really detailed insight into what's right, what's not, what is, what's not. What I can do is I can probably give you a bit of generic advice that I would imagine, in fact, I do know that it would probably stand the test of time in any geography. Don't overextend. It's probably the biggest piece of advice I've given to any client I've ever worked with, any business I've ever worked with. Here in particular, what I see is that there is, again, it comes down to this desire, and I love this about this city, is that there's this desire to be better, to do better, to elevate yourself to a different place. And property becomes a really big part of that. But I think sometimes what happens is that people jump onto a bandwagon that sounds like it's doing well, and they don't do their due diligence and they don't do their research. Where is the property? I've heard some horror stories here. Did you even go and look at whether the project existed or not? You must have heard more stories than me on that one.
Yeah.
But I heard it from one person, and I was stunned. You didn't go and check whether it existed or whether it didn't. And I think it's things like that. And for me, the generic advice is really, really basic. Don't overextend yourself. If you know that you can't make the payments or you can't meet the payment plan, then don't just do the first part and then think it's going to be okay, because you never know when the market's going to shift. Yes, someone might come along in 6 months' time and say, you bought that plot of land when it was at base value, now it's increased by 20%. And guess what? Some people have been lucky enough to do that. I do have, interestingly enough, a friend here who is a real estate lawyer, and she's been here for about 12, 13 years. And she's actually done quite well in the properties that she's purchased and that she's sold. And I remember saying to her, I said, how do you choose them? What did you do to choose these properties? And her simple advice to me was, she said, I never bought any of those properties to sell them or flip them quickly or make a quick buck. Mm-hmm. I looked at it from the perspective of, I'm going to move into this place, I'm going to live here. And therefore, I wasn't stuck with a place that I didn't want. And I didn't suddenly have this huge amount of money that I had to pay, knowing that I couldn't afford it. And lo and behold, on both of the places, 2.5 years later, one I think was in the Springs and one I think was in Tilal Al Gulf. And lo and behold, as the values went up, people came and offered her. Now, at that point, it was her decision.
Right.
Am I sentimentally attached? Do I want to stay here? Do I not want to stay here? Or is the offer I'm being made valuable enough for me to say, actually, I'll take the money and I'll move somewhere else? But that's, in all honesty, that's probably my advice on most things, right? Is that quick fix is always dangerous, because you make quick decisions. You don't do your due diligence. You don't understand whether a lot of people do that whole thing. And I guess, look, I've probably done it in my life at some point too, and I'm sure I'll do it again at some point, is that you look at something and you see it as probably a really, really good deal. And in some ways you'll be like, I'll figure out how to pay for it later, but this is really great right now. Okay, do that. But do it if you've got the right person behind you, or the right advice behind you, or the right support network. And I think those are, whether it's commercial, whether it's residential, those are always really, really deep, like really deep pitfalls that people can fall into, because it's like we are innately as human beings, we are a little bit like sheep, dare I say, in whichever country you're from. You hear something that's great that's going on, and I see it here with property a lot. You hear a great deal and a great development, and it's all going really well, it's all wonderful. And suddenly you're cashing in your pension because you want to jump on this. Just careful, a little bit careful.
Yes, you definitely need guidance in that
It's the guidance, and I think that's the thing is, Victoria, is it's so much about guidance. It's what I was saying before. I wouldn't attempt to do it here, even though I feel like I know enough and I could get by, but I wouldn't do it without the right guidance. I think there are too many places that you can, if you compare it to the UK is, bearing in mind that land itself has been governed a certain way in the UK for hundreds of years. It's not changed. So there is a system there that operates in such a way that whoever you are, if you're in the UK, you know how to buy a house, you know what documents you need, you know which lawyers to go to, and even if you don't know too much, it's almost like a template. Every lawyer has a template. It's all done from a template. Here, it's still evolving. It's the city's 25, 30 years old, so...
And constantly changing, right? Like every year there is something, new addition, adjustment here and there. It's hard to keep up sometimes.
It's so hard to keep up. And what I love about it is that it is changing for the better. Like the government, as I'm sure people who've lived here for longer than me know, when something comes up that is an issue for some people, the government will change it to make it better. I've seen even the changes since I've been here for 18 months, changes in rental indexes and RERA and all those things.
Absolutely.
Right? There's such great things that happen, but you don't know them if you've not lived in this region for long enough. When I came here, I didn't know what my rights were as far as my landlord raising my rent was concerned, what he can take from my deposit, what he couldn't take from my deposit. So all of those things, they're constantly changing. And unless you're monitoring the rental index every 5 seconds, you just don't have time to keep up with it.
It's not easy. Yes, you have to be on it.
Yeah. It's just take the advice, understand that the balances of certain things are different here. The system is not as evolved, but actually what it's doing is the system here is it's making it more evolved, and it's making it more evolved in a better way. When I looked at the change, I mentioned the RERA thing. When I looked at the change of that, I mean, where else in the world can you go online and put your address in, check what your rent should be, and then be able to go to your landlord and say, you can't raise my rent? Because,
that is true.
I mean, that's insane. It's insanely good.
Yes.
No one else does that.
I know.
So there are some really great things, but I wouldn't have known about that had it not been you and I having a conversation.
I know.
And you saying, when I was talking about my rental increase, and you saying to me, but Ali, you do realize your landlord can't do this unless, and I was like, I didn't know.
Yes.
So there you go.
And it's all online. I know.
And I didn't know that either until you told me as well. So there we go.
It's very convenient. And people can buy property as well without coming here.
Yeah.
That's like, they're changing all the time. Yeah. And there's so much information that can be very valuable for those who want to invest, buy a home, relocate.
Yeah.
That's such a valid point.
Yeah, no, and I think there are some great people here as well. And maybe that's part of it, is that finding the right person to kind of guide you through that process is also probably not that easy. And I don't mean that to sound disrespectful to anyone who's also doing it, but I think you have to have a really deep knowledge of this environment. Again, you've been here for so many years, and I'm not saying it just because it's you, but you've seen the cycles, and I think you have to understand those cycles as well.
Of course.
That anyone can see what the market has been doing for the last 6 to 9 months and think that it's the greatest thing in the world, but who remembers what happened during the financial crisis? Mm-hmm. Who remembers what happened during COVID? Who remembers what happened when the first crash in Dubai happened? All of those things, you have to have known those cycles and see those cycles to be able to protect people against it. And, I guess with what you do, your role is to make sure, like you said, that you serve, your clients in the best possible way. And mine in finance was the same. If I think something is a bad deal, am I going to continue funding them just for the fact that it's going to make me some money? No.
That is so true.
It's not how we operate.
It's also sometimes looking at things from different perspective. Yeah. Like take Corona. It was an excellent time to buy property.
Yeah.
It's sometimes you can look at certain situation and it's like, oh my God, it's a tragedy. But that's why you need people who are professional, who will show you the other side of the coin. And you can look at it from the different angle. But
who else would have known that other than someone who's been here for so long? Because so many people, and the UK was the same.
Right.
It's really funny because when COVID hit, and it's not funny that COVID hit, but when COVID happened in the UK, it was the same thing. For the first 4 or 5 months, property prices suddenly started slowly tumbling. And you're sat there thinking, no, there's something amiss here, because this can't go on forever. Why is this suddenly happening to the market? Okay, it's because the markets control real estate. Real estate funds are controlled by external markets and all of those wonderful, slightly boring things probably. But when you look at it, someone who knows that actually this is a short-term issue. Okay, 3 years was not that short-term for people. It was a hard time for so many people, and it was horrific, right? But you're right, that in that moment, you're probably the one telling people, look, if you don't need to sell or you can buy, it's a good time, because we will come out of this. And that actually, it segues really nicely into when you asked about the financial piece, what advice would you give someone financially? If you can hold, the markets generally will find their way back up. Whether it's real estate, whether it's the financial markets, whether it's trading in stocks and shares, it's when you want something quickly, when you go into something really, really quickly and expect a return that's going to set you up for the rest of your life within a year or two, that's dangerous territory for me. And that's my finance background properly. But you're right. Someone who bought in COVID is now sat on a wonderful place that they probably maybe wouldn't have been able to afford pre-COVID, and now are raising a wonderful family in post-COVID because they could afford it during that time.
That is so true.
Yeah.
It's all about seeing an opportunity and the right time to invest.
Yeah, definitely. Well,
Ali, it was such a pleasure to have you here today.
It's been really great. I genuinely really, really enjoyed it, and thank you for having me.
It's been amazing, and I wish we can do it again.
Oh, I'm happy to, always.
That'd be lovely.
Great.
Well, thank you everyone for watching, and I hope I'll see you on the next episode.